mission. Today we are speaking with a very special speaker. The CEO of the Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, has the perfect bird's eye view on the Indian economy and the entire mission to revive after the coronavirus pandemic. I'm pleased to welcome to the show Mr. Amitabh Kant.
Thank you.
Thank you for speaking with us, Mr. Kant. And let me begin with some of the reform measures that have been announced recently by the Modi government. The Niti Aayog has been very involved in devising some of these proposals, and one in particular is the plan to privatize railways. Now, about 30,000 crore rupees of investments are expected. Of course, for our viewers, proposals have been allowed for the privatization of 151 modern trains on 109 pairs of routes. There are reports that there is a lot of interest coming in so far, but a lot of questions, Mr. Kant, on the dynamics of how it would work. Let me begin by asking you, A, why do you think it will be a game changer? And B, what do you say to those who are concerned specifically about fares? Because these private players can determine their own fares, which may not be in the best interest of the passengers.
No, it's first of all, let me say that this is a paradigm shift in Indian Railways. It'll bring in a completely new passenger experience, because this is for the first time that we are commissioning additional private sector operated passenger trains, which will bring in improved technology. They will bring in world-class asset quality. They will reduce journey time. They will improve efficiency of operations. And actually, why this is important, it's very important to say, because for years we've seen that new technology is required in Indian Railways. Secondly, there's a huge waiting list, and if there's a massive waiting list on certain routes, why should the private sector not be allowed to charge what is they are making the investment? Just like private sector comes in air, they are operating airlines. Vistara and IndiGo are charging according to their markets, and similarly, you have container lorries operating. They are charging on highways. So if you have private sector in highway, if you have private sector in airlines, why should you not have private trains operating on infrastructure which has been created by the railways? It's just like the highway model. And therefore, under the first phase of the project, we have about 151 trains. These are 109, starting and departure pairs, what we call as OD pairs, and they are divided into 12 clusters. Yes. They've been taken up for bidding. These are the most attractive routes, I would say, across the country, the most attractive routes. They are based on huge unmet demand, where there are waiting lists. And as per waiting list, as per Railways passenger reservation data, here the private sector will have the ability to run premier passenger services. So services will radically improve. And this will allow private sector investment of over about 30,000 crores into passenger operations of Indian Railways. The concessionaire would be free to charge market-linked fares to passenger while providing value-added services for food, comfort. You will see good entertainment for individualized and enhanced passenger experience. And it will allow for procurement, operational service flexibility, all that. And therefore, this is a unique, what we've tried to do is something unique, which has already been done in other sectors of Indian economy, including banking. And therefore, this is a very major reform measure.
Let me come back to the question of fares, Mr. Kant, with a specific example of the Tejas Express. In a sense, it was the first sort of mini experiment on how this would work. and it didn't work out that well. Occupancy rates were low. So is the fares versus convenience formula really something backed by any kind of data or study? Are we sure that passengers on these routes will be able to or will want to pay a premium for better services, and would that then be worthy for private investors to come in?
Yeah, so for years, the Indian Railways has subsidized passenger fare, years. And the passenger fares are extremely low in India, but at the cost of freights. And the freight is more expensive in railways, and that's why the railways have been losing freight, which has shifted from rail, which used to be 80% once upon a time, is just now 30%. It's all shifted to lorries, which has made India, very, very unsustainable in terms of, environment. And therefore, it's very important that freight shifts back to railways, and that's important. But on passenger trains, if somebody is providing good services, give him the freedom to charge. He will charge what the market can provide. Leave the market to decide that. You and I should not decide that. The person who's investing will put in resources into that and make it a top class experience. And many of us would prefer to travel by trains with a good experience rather than going by air, which means going to the airport, flying, and all that kind of a whole lot of hassles. Passenger experience will enable you to get a lot of international tourists and domestic tourists, and tourism will get a major fillip simply because seats will now be available.
Let me pivot a little to the question of growth, Mr. Kant. You and I are speaking at a time when a very eye-popping Q1 GDP figure has come out in the public domain of close to a minus 24% degrowth for India. Public data shows that yes, the world has done badly in that particular quarter, whether it's Q1 for nations like us who use this financial year or calendar year Q2. Everyone has hurt in this period. India more so because of the severity of its lockdown. What is your take on the debate right now that perhaps the severe nature of the lockdown that we imposed in the last week of March wasn't possibly the best idea? It hit the economy badly, as we can see, and we've still seen a steady rise in numbers of those infected by coronavirus.
Yeah, so Tamanna, I think if you look around the world, you will see that this has been an unprecedented scenario. The pandemic has hit the global economy in a very big way. The crisis is 50 times bigger than the crisis of the 2008. When the pandemic hit India, we were the first to respond to it because we wanted to protect the lives of our citizens. Nobody knew how the crisis will span out in the days to come. And therefore, we took measures to protect the lives of individuals. And this was critical at that particular point of time. And as you've seen this, we are in unlocked down 4. And over a period of time, we have progressed, graduated, opened up our economy, we've allowed, but the first quarter has been bad for every single economy across the world. We've all been hit, UK has been hit, United States has been hit, but I'm confident that we'll bounce back. We should look forward, not look back. And I look at it with optimism. While the pandemic is still there, we've seen a huge rebound. And I only hope that the states now realize that the lockdown is not the solution. The solution lies in masks, in physical distancing, in contact tracing, but definitely not in lockdowns. And therefore, we need to ensure that economy must continue to grow.
Hindsight,
no, my view is that economy must grow and progress.
So in hindsight, do you think?
No, in hindsight, I think that it's been a learning process for everyone. We've also grown and evolved. And it's important because if states do lockdown, there'll be impact in terms of learning outcomes, in terms of health outcomes, in terms of economy, all that. And therefore, now the learning lesson really is that we need to manage ourselves better, but ensure that the economy continues to grow and progress. States must now partner the center to ensure that Indian economy must be on a V curve growth.
I just want to talk a bit about these unlock guidelines and the sort of start-stop that we have seen. The latest set of guidelines says that, states cannot impose localized lockdowns unless if they're in containment zones without sort of a check from the center. How do you think this will pan out, and is this the right way forward, considering a lot of business and industry has complained that random arbitrary lockdowns did not allow them to open fully or close fully?
No, this is the right approach because my belief always has been that we should only do hyper localized strategies. That is, if there is infection, say, just to give you an example, if there's infection only in the Okhla area, restricted to Okhla area and not all over South Delhi. If you do this all over South Delhi, then you are impacting every single individual, you are impacting vast number of people who, their economic activity, transportation, mobility, businesses, everyone. And therefore, states were becoming trigger happy to do lockouts across the entire cities. What they should follow is a very, very concerted strategy of what has succeeded across the world has been testing, contact tracing, and a hyper localization strategy. That is the only solution for the COVID-19 pandemic and not lockdowns.
But how concerned are you, Mr. Kant, that even as we have sort of tweaked our strategy, we started with a very severe lockdown at the beginning of this curve. We extended that about 3 or 4 times, and then now we've begun to unlock in a not very even manner, considering the size and nature of our country. But the numbers keep on rising, and that truly is a concern. For example, even though now offices are allowed to open, a lot of companies are not sure if they want employees back in offices. In cities like Mumbai, public transport has not completely opened either. So it's a very uneven unlock. It's neither here nor there, and it's not allowing us to move on. On the other hand, the cases are rising.
No, but Tamanna, if you look at it in terms of the population, I mean, all of you journalists are giving absolute numbers, which is not a correct indicator. The indicator has to be per million. So your total number of cases per million are still low. Your total case fatality rate per million is still low. Your number of deaths per million is much, much lower than other countries. It's just about 42 per million as compared to about 111 per million in other parts of the world. So, if you do a comparative analysis with European and America, we are still very, very low per million. And I don't think it's a correct indication to go by the total number.
No, fair enough. But even if you see the number of new cases per day, let's not look at the total number. Let's look at active cases. Yeah. Fine, let's look at new cases per day or even fatality rates. We are moving upwards, and that really is the concern. In various states where I'm speaking with you, in Mumbai and Maharashtra also, we're moving upwards, but you're close to 80,000 cases, new cases per day, after everything that has been tried so far. The concern is it really working, and will we now have to wait for a vaccine to have some sort of a sign that we can move on to the next phase?
Yeah, but the answer, firstly, it's very important for individuals to be responsible. If I don't wear a mask, if I don't do a physical distancing, I'm going to get into a problem. And therefore, it's very important for the country to realize that individuals and society must be responsible. Don't put the onus on the government. Number one. Number two, secondly, lockdown is not the solution. Thirdly, economic activity should not be impacted. If you continue to impact with lockdowns economic activity, you will have many more people below the poverty line, and you will hit a huge amount of impacts on both education and health, which will be very detrimental in the long run for people below the poverty line. And therefore, we must ensure that economic activity continues to happen. Our trains must run, our ports must run, our exports must take place, our manufacturing must function. I mean, that is a key message which channels like yours must put out.
So then may I ask you, Mr. Kant, when is the next round of, that booster shot where we can fire up all these engines coming? After the first round, many said that, okay, we're keeping our powder dry. We want to sort of calibrate the next, infusion of reforms and support to various sectors of the economy along with the unlocking of the economy. That's happening now. Where is the support?
Yeah, I think the pandemic is still there. The numbers are still high. And to my mind, I mean, just between you and me, my view is that we should keep the powder dry and wait for more time, because let the pandemic subside a little bit. I'm a strong believer in travel and tourism sector, for instance. I really think that sector needs to be assisted, but this is not the time. Even if you support it, even if you assist it, the pandemic is still there. There's an element of fear. People may not travel, and therefore wait for the right opportunity. Consolidate, reform more, do asset monetization, push for greater manufacturing and services. Any packages should wait for the right time. And this, to my mind, is, as the pandemic numbers you were talking about are still high, I think we need to wait for the right opportunity.
Mr. Khan, just one rejoinder to that. The question is, will these businesses survive by the time the pandemic eases? You talked about travel and tourism, hotels, restaurants, theaters. There are a number of businesses, small and medium enterprises, which, if not dead already, are gasping for breath. They need that life support now. Are you sure they can wait?
Well, I think a lot has been done on the fiscal and monetary side, both by the RBI and the government, on the MSME package of 3 lakh crore, etc., and on the monetary side by RBI to assist and support as far as the survival strategy is concerned. But if you want to ensure that economy gets a major thrust, which is what you're talking about, if you're saying that we must give a booster shot, then I think the pandemic analysis shows that the numbers are still on the rise, and therefore we need to wait for an appropriate time.
Okay. Well, we'll hope that appropriate time comes soon, and it all hinges on those numbers coming under control. I think one key takeaway is that it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that you don't let the virus spread. Thank you so much, Mr. Kant, for speaking with us today.